Good morning. Welcome to Second Breakfast. Sorry for the late start. Had a Rumble not wanting to connect video issue again this morning. Let's just make sure we're actually getting a stream going here. Going over here on a big TV. We're there. Are we on X? Let's confirm. Some connection issues here. Let's go. Indeed, we are. Outstanding. Okay. Well, imagine having a supernatural power on your side to help you through each day. This episode of Second Breakfast is brought to you by your higher power. Your higher power is free and ready to tap into at any time. The only cost, of course, will be honesty. I use my higher power every day to pray for others and to ask for help. But most of all, I use my higher power to give thanks. You will be amazed at the changes in your life if you allow yourself this eternal free service. We will be right back after the intro, and boy, do we have a lineup today. See you there. Yeah, it's much better with the sound on. Just grabbing my coffee. That's how slow things are going this morning. All right. Well, welcome to Second Breakfast, the stream of consciousness that fills my gap between the no answer period, where we cover the lower house in Parliament, question period, 45 minutes before they start every day, as long as the government keeps showing up, and where we keep score, and where we describe how we keep score in that description below, and of course, Blazing Cat for Fridays, where we do that at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of this. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube, so please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. Most of all, the chat is up across all 3 platforms, so please feel free to say anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I am not driving it down with my forbidden words. And this veteran appreciates your support, so please support my channels and share. Sharing also increases the growth of the channel. I'd like to thank all my subscribers and followers, especially the new ones this week. It helps to grow the channel. Thank you so much, all of you out there. I am so grateful. I hope you're having a wonderful morning and ready to face the day with love and hope of your fellow man. So maybe let's start by cheering everyone up with a funny video first thing this morning. What if you found your child giving your dog a haircut? This dog looks so much like our first family dog. It really does. It reminds me so much of Joey. Oh God, it's so funny. I was laughing. I was rolling on the floor. I've never seen anything so funny. And of course, the dog just sat there knowing that this poor little human that they can't really do anything to because it's like a puppy, just letting it shave its hair off. And you know what? That video could actually be AI generated and we probably wouldn't even know. But it's still funny. Still funny. All right. So, as a historical reminder as to what happened in Canada in the 1970s and early 80s, because I grew up in northern Quebec up until the age of 16, and our family moved to Ontario. And the discrimination that our family faced, because, well, my folks were fully bilingual. Dad was born in Quebec, but he, of course, his family moved to Sturgeon Falls when he was like 6, so he wasn't really brought up in Quebec, and my mother brought up in Northern Ontario, but my folks both fully bilingual, right? But they weren't Quebecois, right? So since they weren't born and raised in Quebec, they were treated differently. Now, as a kid, I didn't see that, right? I just hung out with the other kids. Kids really back then weren't exposed to those kind of divisive politics, so we just enjoyed ourselves as kids. But we sure recognized it once we hit Hollywood, once we hit high school. Yeah, for sure, especially the changes that came about. But anyway, let's listen to this language discrimination in Canada piece from, was it 20 years ago? Let's see, this 19 years ago. And you will see some parallels.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to discuss language discrimination in Canada. Human rights violations going on in the province of Quebec. Our language, the English language, has been all but abolished in the province of Quebec. For the last 3 decades, they have brought in more and more anti-English legislation. The province has been run by anti-English bigots for the last 4 decades. They are banning our language at the same time as forcing the French language on the majority of Canadians outside Quebec. The banning of our language started in the early 1970s in the province of Quebec. Bill 22, Bill 178, Bill 101, which is now in play. No Prime Minister from this country has done anything to defend the rights of the English in Quebec, from Pierre Trudeau to Brian Mulroney to Jean Chrétien. All 3 prime ministers allowed the banning of our language, a language that was protected under the BNA Act, the founding constitution of this country. It is an absolute disgrace what is going on in this country. Nobody will speak up for the English-speaking majority, the English, the Scots, the Irish, the Loyalists that have founded and built this country for the last 250 years. It is an absolute disgrace what is going on. We have nowhere to turn. Nobody is listening to us. The only solution for me is to remove this province from Confederation, or else we will lose our rights across the nation. They are forcing the French language in every province, in every municipality across this country. They are using the term bilingualism, which is really no more than a hiring quota for francophones. Please step up. Visit the websites languagefairness.ca, canadadivided.com, languagefairness.com. Please help us. Our rights are at stake here, and we're losing them daily.
Now, the strange thing is since then, Canada has become more divided under liberals and far lefties. And of course, Quebec is just full of far lefties because they've elected their own far left Bloc Québécois to Parliament. But you can see there, nothing has changed. And with the recent debacle, we have a plane crash in LaGuardia, and 2 pilots are dead. And the CEO of Air Canada comes out and says, a eulogy. And then he is berated by these far left halfwits telling him, oh, you didn't say it in French. When in fact, Canada has 2 official languages. 2! That means you can officially talk in either one of those languages. But no. For the far left, it says, no, you must speak in both all the time. You must virtue signal 100% of the time. When if you fail to virtue signal your proudness in the French language, we will come after you. Right? And so you saw it there 20 years ago. And then here we are 20 years later, and they're going on about the same bloody thing, making people feel like they're second-class citizens for not speaking French, all the while losing what's left of Canada underneath their feet as they are slowly being replaced by mass immigration by the Liberals. So you're not even going to be able to protect your French language anymore. Quebec has recognized that recently, too. They want to put quotas on migrants coming in. They want specific French language-speaking migrants in their province. Yeah, but they don't want to develop their own natural resources, and they sure love those transfer payments from Alberta. Yep, always surviving on other people's money. That is the far left mantra of socialism, because socialists don't actually produce anything. They only ever steal and then sit atop their mountain of skulls counting their shekels. All right, let's move on to the next story. Here we go. Antonio tweets, nobody wants to say this out loud. What is he saying? Common sense?
Paying 54% tax is bullshit. We are ridiculously and gangsterly overtaxed in Canada. They're getting more than us. It's not right. No. We should be dropping the GST tomorrow. We should be dropping the income tax rate tomorrow. And we should be cutting the size of government by 15%.
At least. Or more.
Yeah. I perform citizenship judge duties as an Order of Canada. I also recognize they have 3 people doing what I have in my company with 1 person. It's disgusting. Paying 54% tax is bullshit. We are ridiculously and over.
For one thing's for sure is the government never does anything efficiently. Never whatsoever. Some people say, the government will take care of it. Yeah. At 10, 20 times the cost, probably. And somewhere along the way, someone will have to pay for it. And that's you through the nose, buddy. Well, speaking of buddy, here we have your classic El Bozo. And he's upset for being El Bozo. Let's see. Cass Blackburn writes, he showed up at a foreign nation's border to attend a protest against said nation's leader. Of course, they're going to pull him inside for additional screening and probably send him packing. Any normal nation would. Yet CTV positions it like he's a victim. Yeah, so Canadian man says he was denied entry and forced to submit DNA sample at U.S. border. Well, okay, dickheads. Here's a lesson. Here's a life lesson. If you're going into a foreign nation, and you declare at the border that you're going inside that nation to cause shit, guess what's going to happen to you at the border? These virtue signaling halfwits think they are entitled to tell everybody else how to think and what to do. They're constantly in your face about it. Wow. Well, this guy's like having problems getting into the USA, but meanwhile, our Prime Minister has no problems getting into the USA, especially when he can just fly around on your taxpayer dime using a Challenger jet from, 412 Squadron, probably over in Ottawa, to fly him into Boston yesterday. Massachusetts, why did he go there? It wasn't even on his schedule. We have no idea why our Prime Minister used our jet to go down to Boston. No idea. Why is he abusing his office this way? But there's a reason for scheduling Canadian Armed Forces aircraft that are managed by the Royal Canadian Air Force, right? We have so much fuel that we give them per year to fly and for training operations, right? And for operations. So, I mean, if he's blowing through this operations budget, who the hell is paying for that? You are. Now, remember, he's flown the equivalent of now over 6 times around the planet in a year. Who does that? What other leader on this planet has flown around the planet, has flown that much? Probably none. Probably not even the President of the United States has flown around the planet that much in a year. It's insane. I mean, I think the only people who have flown more than the Prime Minister of Canada have been actual pilots. Now, Michael Chong writes, now this was from a couple of days ago, Natural Resource Minister Tim Hodgson, when asked about MP Ma's comments suggesting there are no Uyghur forced labor in the PRC, People's Republic of China, he says, we don't need to have public discussions about where we disagree. We make that clear to our friends in China. We don't need to have public discussions about where we disagree. See, the liberals are always telling you what you should do. You know, when you ask them a question, they'll turn around and say, well, what I would say is and they will reframe the question the way they want to say it. They will never answer questions whatsoever. They will reframe everything. They're slippery as shit on a stick. Slimy shit on a stick liberals. John, a sergeant retired, writes, is this why Carnage is so quiet on Ma's comments? And in case you're not familiar with what happened with China Ma, the MP Ma, the one that crossed the floor, sorry, had a little hiccup there, the one who crossed the floor, went over to the Liberals from the Conservatives, right? That traitor, who has connections now with the with PRC, China Front China? Anyways, I covered it in the last couple of shows. Anyways, he writes here, a Brookfield Asset Management subsidiary was fined $800,000 in December. Sorry, 800,000 Rs. Is that Brazilian money? I think so. That's equivalent to $163,000 in December of 2021, right? By Brazilian authorities for slave labor offenses on a farm linked to the company. Now, this was brought up during the election, but of course the mainstream media didn't cover it, right? And why didn't the mainstream media cover it? Because of this. Because they are all part of the Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization tax credit system that gives them up to close to 30 grand per employee per year if they're paying them 85 grand. So your tax dollars are covering the rest. Again, that's the liberals abusing your tax dollars so that they can pay the media to give you their propaganda and not tell you the rest of the media and the news that's happening on the planet. As well, remember in 2019, Justin Trudeau removed a law that prevented media from lying to you because there were fines back then. Because if they were caught fining people in the media, you had to pay. But now they can lie to you all they want and there are no fines whatsoever. No fines, no fees, no punishment whatsoever. That's the reality in Canada. So, key details of Brookfield in Brazil slave labor fine. A regional labor court in Brazil upheld a fine against Brookfield-controlled firm for violations of anti-slave labor laws in the farm in 2021, deforestation allegations for Mr. Net Zero. Reported that in 2022, farms linked to Brookfield in Cerrado region were involved in deforestation with some lacking proper permits. Okay. So that's, and of course, he's still invested in Brookfield, right? Oh, it's a blind trust. Yeah, he knows what's in it, folks. Charlie Treadway writes, host of the Sovereign Sphere podcast. Liberals praise Mark Carney when he decides to ditch our relationship with the U.S. in favor of China. This is what you are praising. So, of course, she has a link here to this video exposing the operations and treatments of detainees and violent drills that directly negate public claims from China. Watch the video.
Brainwashing. It's about putting them. So the new evidence really shows that this is a campaign to break a people. It's, after all, most likely the largest incarceration of an ethno-religious minority since the Holocaust. So we can no longer say business as usual. And the new evidence really underlines the nature of this atrocity. So the new evidence really shows that the re-education or the so-called vocational training in Xinjiang is nothing to do with poverty alleviation, nothing to do with helping people to get jobs. It's about brutal brainwashing. It's about putting them in prison camps guarded by heavily armed police. We have evidence, in the watchtowers that they use military-grade machine guns and sniper rifles in the watchtowers. And it's very clear that this is a campaign to break a people, to brainwash a people. So what we are seeing in the region is sort of Beijing's master plan to control, to break the back of entire ethnic groups by interning people, masses of people, key people, the old generation. We see how many elderly people are in the camps. We see that from the data. It shows like the taking out of a whole generation that's been transmitting cultural and spiritual knowledge, and of children being put into boarding schools. It's a whole program of assimilation, of assimilating an entire ethnic group.
This is who the Liberal Party of Canada is in business with. This is who the Liberal Party of Canada wants you not to know of what they are doing to their own citizens so they can get away with what they are doing. They purposefully decided that they were going to distance themselves from our natural trading partner of the United States by demonizing them, by perpetually putting a propaganda campaign into your brains to hate Americans in order to make business with these thugs, these bullies, these mass murdering. Waiting for my to catch up here. You're having a lot of choppiness issue. Catch up. Yep. Settings. We're back. All right, sorry. I have a Starlink on order. So hopefully these choppiness issues that we continue to ignore will finally go away. If you know anything about upload and download speeds, I have repeatedly done internet tests, and sometimes my upload speeds drops down to 0.09 Mbps. 0.09. That's why you get these choppiness, because my upload speed just stops. So that will be solved with Starlink. It's just it's an issue of the area. It doesn't matter what provider you go to here in the area, even 5, boom, you will lose that stream. So now I got to bring down the output. There we go. Output done. So liberals in cahoots with these mass murdering communists. And they're ready to bring in 50,000 EVs made by people imprisoned in these camps that are slowly being erased, abused, imprisoned for no reason. These are crimes against humanity, and these are the people that the liberals are in cahoots with. They're in bed with these people, and they want you to think otherwise. I think people need to realize that liberals have no ethics and morals. Now, we watched a bit of this yesterday. Let's watch a bit of this again today to remind everyone how much the Prime Minister of Canada is in league with the Chinese, has no morals and ethics, and it's always been part of his emotional makeup that he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about human life as long as he makes his money.
Do you believe that the Chinese government is perpetrating a genocide on the Uyghur people? Put shareholder profits aside and just focus on humanity here for a moment.
I focus on humanity. I spend
so yes or no?
Time focused on humanity, which
yes
is
or no?
dedicated to my.
Yes or no?
I'm deeply concerned by the situation and with the.
Yes or no?
Thank you very much, Mr. Polyev. Unfortunately,
shareholders first. Do you believe that the Chinese government is perpetrating a genocide on the Uyghur people?
I've always said it. Know them by what they do. Know them by what they say. Well, somebody's having fun with Michael Ma. Have you witnessed a forced labor yourself? This is great when people do these little funny videos.
You claim about forced labor in Shenzhen. Have you witnessed this yourself? You witnessed forced that? Just a short answer. Have you witnessed forced labor in Shenzhen? Yes or no? So thank you.
Now, there's been a new bill passed regarding misinformation for elections. And one of them is that you're not allowed to misrepresent political personalities by altering their images. So this here, I guess, might even qualify for a fine under the new law that the Liberals have passed. You know, avoiding the fact that we can understand that this is a comedy meme, right? There's no altering of the image here that shows that this is real. This is a committee in Parliament. Nobody shows up to committee just as a furry or whatever that is. But it's parody. So here we have Lynn Brooks. Markham Unionville voters are hosting a protest, and that would be tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Mark Carney is having a fundraising event with Michael Ma and Tim Hodgins. He says, well, I think people need to catch up on the information because right here, Joe Tay yesterday posted before and after, someone's gone missing. Okay, well, let's look at the images that he has posted. Here we have, hosted by Michael Ma, on An Evening with Mark Carney at the, where are we? What golf course is this? This is a golf course in Markham Unionville. Angus Glen Golf Club. Angus Glen Golf Club. In Markham Unionville. Okay, so this was like $1,775 per plate. Or, you know, if you're under 35, youth age 35 and under, $925. Youth. They consider you a youth at 35. No wonder they can't tell the difference between men and women. So let's look at the next picture, and we have featured guest, Right Honorable Mark Carney, Honorable Larry. That's not me. Grab Gary. Back. I'm back. And I'm back. Am I back? Okay. All right. Well, let's hope this choppiness comes to an end soon. So I can't do anything about it. So as you can see here, it looks like Michael Ma has been replaced by a comma. So perhaps he's not there. And of course, it's been nothing but radio silence from the Prime Minister on this. Michael Chong writes, the Prime Minister has special responsibility for the conduct of international affairs. Yesterday, a Liberal MP intimated that there has been no Uyghur forced labor in the PRC. Now, this, of course, is from a couple of days ago. This week, the PMO gave an account that conflicted with the initial PCO response of March 13th to an order paper question about whether the Prime Minister did proactively raise the issue of human rights with PRC counterparts during the most recent visit. Now, we've covered this story on and off for the last couple of episodes, and he has posted a letter to the PM. Of course, he's never gotten a response. I think we have now 4 different versions of the truth on what the Prime Minister said in his visit to China. But as you can see, everything that was covered so far up to this point this morning shows that it's true. The Liberals only want to do business with China, and they don't want you to pay attention to their just we didn't have to bring down the settings yesterday like this. We had a problem, no problem with the show yesterday at all. Right, let's bring down those settings once again. Okay, we're now broadcasting on 500 kbs. So if my face looks like I'm broadcasting on a potato, it's to avoid this choppiness. So, of course, Michael Chong has posted this letter wanting a response as to why liberals keep changing their narrative on whether or not they brought up human rights issues with the Chinese. And now it's obvious that they never did. That they're lying to Canadians once again because they keep changing the story. Because they keep changing the story with Michael Ma. And they pushed their agenda a little too hard in committee. And now they've been exposed. Because they do not care about human life. Not at all. Sageza Eterna. Canada is currently ruled by a cartel of ideological zealots and financial parasites who view the nation as a liquidation sale. That's right, you're being sold off, Canada, right now in the process of selling off your pension for investment holders. The liberal establishment has deliberately engineered the destruction of Canadian prosperity to ensure praise from international tribunals and globalist forums. And you'll note that they constantly praise their position in the international community. International community, international community, international community. As you can see, all they ever do is try to find praise from the international community, and they were just doing it now with their defense spending. Oh, look at us. The NATO chief has said we finally met our 2%, again, while ignoring the needs of their own population. Classic fascist behavior by a government. Right? They're not taking care of the Canadians. They're not using their tax dollars to ensure society is bettered. No, society continually gets worse. And all questions to them are met with silence, obfuscation, a changed narrative, or radio silence. They have abandoned the fundamental duties of the state to serve foreign interests. They completely ignore the hardworking citizens who physically build our cities and harvest our resources from coast to coast. They favor a corrupt ruling class that produces absolutely nothing of tangible value while dictating how the rest of us must live. Mark Carney stands as the ultimate avatar of this managed decline. He is a rootless technocrat who floats between central banks and billionaires, submits while preaching crippling austerity to the working class. Carney leverages the language of climate crisis. That's right, he's a net zero fool. Again, yesterday we noticed, right, what's happened in Australia. They've run out of gas because they closed down 6 of their 8 refineries, and now they're paying the price for their net zero tomfoolery. And you're paying the price for it, Canada, right at the pumps. Carney leverages the language of climate crisis and economic reform strictly as mechanisms of control and subjugation. His policies are designated to centralize wealth and dictate the daily lives of citizens from the comfort of state boardrooms. It's true. Look at It's true. It's true. Look at what they've done. I'm sorry, folks. This choppiness, I'm at a loss. I constantly having issues. And hopefully, upgrading to our new internet provider will solve these issues, but make it harder, perhaps, for the Chinese to constantly interfere with this podcast. It's just a tinfoil hat thing to say. All right. His policies are designed to centralize wealth and dictate the daily lives of citizens from the comfort of insulated boardrooms. His views, sovereign nations as mere financial portfolios to be managed and populations as irritating liabilities to be minimized. He demands that the men and women sweating to lay bricks, build homes, and power our industries surrender their livelihoods for his radical utopian experiments. This person here is encapsulating a lot of things that have been discussed on this channel. The left heralds Carney as a visionary intellectual strictly because they are entirely bereft of actual leadership or original thought. That is true. Far left always want to imagine something way bigger than themselves because they've never actually done anything themselves. right? They're imagining themselves in this role of oh, you need to be made better. They need to be part of something because their life is so meaningless right now. Because they've been told to hate and to fear other people and other things, and that only their worldview counts now. And when it starts crashing around them, they start to double down on their insanity. The Liberal Party operates exclusively on the politics of division, resentment, and economic sabotage. They suffocate domestic innovation, tax the working citizen into complete submission, and then shamelessly present international bankers as the brilliant solution to the poverty they explicitly created. And that's how we ended up with Carney. The liberal apparatus operates entirely on deception. True, deception, nothing but deception. Their deception is called out all the time. But the problem is they can't officially call another MP a liar to his face in Parliament when all they do is lie. They master endless lust for absolute authority behind a pathetic facade of compassion and environmental stewardship. And it is absolutely pathetic. Their green scam policies and so-called renewables are just a toxic mess that destroy the environment. When Carney speaks of a sustainable future, he explicitly dealing the controlling demolition of our living standards. Indeed, they demand you own nothing, accept less, and be grateful for the meager scraps they allow you to keep. In fact, how often in Parliament do they talk about, oh, we're giving free lunches to kids in school, oh, we're giving free dental to seniors, which is false because when you look into it, if the seniors fail to file their taxes that year, they're not getting it. You haven't been fully subscribed into the system. The left demands total submission to these unelected globalist architects because progressive ideology fundamentally despises the independence of self-sustaining strong citizens, which is why CFIA is actively going around destroying farms by going in and arbitrarily saying that, oh, your flock is diseased, we have to kill it all. Oh, your herd is diseased, we have to kill them all now. And you have no way whatsoever to go and fight against them. In fact, the National Citizens Inquiry was heralding questions about how the CFIA has been abusing farmers, and a lot of farmers opted not to testify because they were being intimidated by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, being told that you go in there and you say anything, you might not get recompense when we show up at your farm to destroy all your animals. This is the kind of bullying. These are typical communist Chinese tactics being used right now here in Canada by the Liberal government against its own citizens. The true republic requires leaders with the raw strength of the line to protect its borders and the calculating cunning of the fox to navigate international threats. Canada currently suffers under the reign of a weak, compliant sheep actively leading a historic nation to the slaughterhouse. You want to know weakness? Look how Carney reacted when he was asked questions about the missile attack in Ali al-Salam. Oh, I'm not the only spokesman. Yeah, you are the spokesman. Mr. Burns. We're being led by Mr. Net Zero Burns. Let loose the flying monkeys! Here's a post by Antonio Tweets. This is from our thumbnail from today. And listen to what this woman says. Anyone who's been paying attention since 2015 knows exactly what the hell she's talking about.
Does anyone have explanation why I'm Russian and I just crossed the border from the United States to Canada? We're in Ontario by Niagara Falls. I always was dreaming to see it, but I feel like I'm in North Korea. Do not ask me how I know about North Korea. However, Canada looks so crazy like communist country. Genuinely feel sorry for Canadians. It was such a great country. I've heard so many beautiful things about it growing up. What happened? We got out from our hotel and we went to some Walgreens type of store. It was a police car and five dispensaries around it and people, stunned people standing around looking at us, and all the roads are with holes area, everything is broken, everything you touch. You go to the restroom, public restroom by this Niagara Falls center, tourist center, there was pee in every single toilet. What is going on with your country? You guys all in my comments are saying that Russia is bad, Russia is that. You will not see this in Russia. There is no stupid dispensaries, and just forget about Russia. I'm not comparing with Russia. I just want to know how come you Canadians let this thing happen. You have the most beautiful wonder of the world. It could be like 10 times better than Las Vegas here. And all I see pee in the toilets, holes in the road, and very beautiful place that needs attention of you people that's supposed to preserve it. Or what is it? Maybe we don't really decide anything and politicians are just stealing all your money. How much taxes you pay? I looked in Zillow. It's 500,000, 600,000 Canadian dollars for 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Just across the border, the same apartment is $90,000. Where are the money going? You never ask. You live here, you don't ask where your money is going. Honestly, maybe I don't understand something, but your country deserves better. Your people deserve better. Something should be done.
Wake up, Canada. Wake the F up, Canada. Liberals are literally destroying the country and destroying everything around you. And you've got your liberal friends telling you, you're a racist, you're a fascist, you're a tinfoil hat crazy person. And then all you have to say is, for the love of God, can you not see the hell unleashed on our streets? Can you not understand that the food banks are running out of food? The government is praising itself for giving National Socialist food stamp tax credits so people can feed themselves. And they pat themselves on the back. The opposition voted against using their own money. And of course, they only give this help to part of the population, right? They don't give a tax break to everybody. They could do that easily. But no. No, they have to keep sucking the money from the taxpayer and then giving out crumbs to a few people. Oh, here's some help with your groceries. Oh, here's some help with a bag lunch. Oh, here's your help with your dental. What's next? Here's your help with your eye care. But you know what? You can get made on the same day. Yeah, the government will walk in and just take you out like that and then harvest your organs. But try to get any other kind of help, years and months. Yeah, screw that. Tax relief? Out of the question, folks. Out of the question. Here you have a cathedral in France burning. Again, how did this happen? Well, here's the story. Rwandan immigrant Emmanuel Abasienga had his asylum application to France rejected multiple times since submitting in 2012. Despite orders for deportation, he remained in the country illegally. The priest busted him with the cathedral keys, putting him in charge of locking up and interrogating. Man's a criminal. She gave him the keys. Okay. After he set the building on fire, destroying the organ and organ loft, Father Mayer took him in, offering him shelter in his own home while awaiting trial. Then he murdered Father Mayer. Europe in a nutshell. And a tale for the future of Canada. Because I'm pretty sure we're probably almost very close there. Because remember, you have judges in Canada giving different sentences or not criminally charging immigrants coming in because it might impact their ability to get citizenship. Meanwhile, so remember the Minab school strike that killed 170 children in Iran? Well, quoting Gaza Ranjkesh, who shared the raw voice message from the family of Mehdi Salari, the boy killed in a Minab school strike. One of the parents is finally speaking out, and it destroys the entire regime's propaganda narrative. Now remember this, propaganda is a tool of war, and right now Iran is at war. One of the parents is finally speaking out. The school and these children's deaths are literally the one thing the Islamic Republic and its supporters worldwide use to scream, U.S. and Israel, attack innocent kids! But here's the truth straight from the family. Even if it was an American missile to hit the building, the blood of Mehdi and every child who died is 100% on the Islamic Republic's hands. Who the hell puts a military IRGC radar on top of a school full of children? Well, Islamists do. Because remember, in the war against Hamas, they continually set up their mortars and missile launchers right next to schools and hospitals. Remember that hospital that was struck during the reaction to the mass murder of Israelis by Palestinians, Fakistinians, as they like to call them, crossing the border and mass murdering and kidnapping and raping Israeli citizens? After that happened, of course, there was another war that ensued, and of course, there was a hospital taken out, and CBC was all over. Oh, there's evil people. Then it turned out, oh, guess what? Hamas had their own munitions there, and that's what blew up. So, and it's not the only example. Even if it was an American missile, right? Who the hell puts an IRGC radar? Islamists do. The Persian Jewish writes, Hamas terrorists show up for work at the UN with rifles in hand, and then they swap out their AK-47s for blue UNRWA vests, get into UN-marked vehicles, and then start their day job as UNRWA employees. The United Nations Refugee Welfare Agency? I forget what the W is. But anyway, this organization has been embroiled in working with Islamists for decades. Now, all right, let's go back to the 90s when UNRWA was involved in the Gaza. Right? So Gaza was given over completely to the Fakistinians by Israel. They moved out all their people. They even dug up their dead because they knew what kind of people these people are. They would just dig up those dead and parade around the dead carcasses because that's the kind of people that they are. So upon giving Gaza to the Fakistinians, the first thing that they went in and did is they destroyed all the greenhouses that were there. It was a nice business set up for them to use. They tore up the concrete at the airport, and then they tore everything that they could that was built by the Jews so they could start building weapons, especially using all those pipes and stuff, right? And any concrete that was being brought into Gaza was being used to build underground tunnels so they continue the war against the Jews instead of, making things better for their own people. So don't have to really worry about winter there. The energy demands can be kind of low there because they're in a nice, Mediterranean area. So there's a lot of abuse. But here's the part where it comes in for UNRWA. One of the things that was conditional in them continuing to get aid is that they needed to teach their children proper education and stop teaching them, indoctrinating them to, basically hate the Jews, right? So as it turns out, UNRWA was involved in creating books that did exactly that. Books with UNRWA symbols on them, and then you look through them, and it was like, oh yeah, these are full indoctrination, right along with the Islamists. And these kind of things got exposed over and over and over, and always ignored and buried by the press, maintained by some separate agencies to continue to bring this truth up. So, seeing that here you have, it's not surprising that you would have this kind of exposure right here with the UN working with Hamas terrorists because they have been involved with them for decades. The United Nations is a corrupt organization, right? And it's the majority of the nations in that organization are not democracies. And they seem to want to tell all the other ethical democracies on the planet what to do. Thomas Sowell quotes Professor Andrew McLeod, this is not a conspiracy. UN security staff trafficked 14 and 15-year-old girls out of Moldova into Bosnia during the war, chained them up at a nightclub for the exclusive use. They were slaves trafficked by the UN staff, he says. These plenty of stories that have been given under oath and as testimony, showing over and over again why we're wasting our money giving it to the United Nations. It was a nice idea when it was proposed to replace the League of Nations, but it has turned into something horrible. The United Nations has a bad habit of creating agencies and work groups to apply for a specific problem, and then when that problem is fixed, instead of removing that agency or committee or whatever it is that's been set up to fix it, no, it continues to exist forever ad infinitum, being funded. Because corruption. and no accountability. You hit a title bomb, right? Israeli Navy commandos just raided a school in Qayyam, Lebanon, and uncovered hundreds of Hezbollah weapons, missiles, explosives, and rifles. Alongside the weapons were items bearing the United Nations HCR logo. I guarantee you won't see these stories on CNN or the BBC. Well, you can bring this up here and you can see some nice display of some weapons. Oh, yeah. Here's some anti-tank weapons. I see some mortar rounds. Oh, there's a nice tripod-mounted 50 cal. Oh, look at these shells. Yeah, could see some mines kicking around. Well, probably a building bench for making IEDs. Oh, look, shopping basket. Okay. Next video. And this is a picture of inside the bombed out area of the school. Hezbollah flags. I'm sure there's plenty of those all through Lebanon. And who funds Hezbollah? Iran. SL Kantan writes, you know the most bizarre thing about this war? Iranians in Iran literally cheer the American-Israeli bombing. You can hear the laughter in his video. Meanwhile, woke white leftists, socialists, and communists in America cannot stop crying. Iranians want a regime change after 47 years of dystopian tyranny. Remember, they hang homosexuals from cranes in the public. Yeah, they beat women who don't properly cover themselves in public. But it's true, I've watched these videos, and even some of the citizens themselves were given a contact number to locate masjid operating areas. So Iranians would be calling an Israeli strike in on the masjid police stations. And the masjids, they're the ones that go around that beat people up and kill them for not following Sharia law. The religious police, that kind of tyranny that they've been living under for 47 years, that all the bleeding heart liberals keep talking about, oh, it's an illegal war, blah, blah, blah. Yes, whatever the reason is, the amount of people that have been murdered is massacred, especially because they've been trying to rise up against this Islamic regime. And you got to remember, they are exporting terrorism all over the planet and have been doing so for a long time. And they have an ideology that says they need to bring about the end of the world, and they're actively working on a nuclear program. So it's like all the warning signs are there, but the far left, the bleeding far left, the weak cowards who never themselves ever put their own boots on as troops to actually do anything, but they'll constantly bleat from the sidelines. Stop. We need more free money. Stop. Don't. There's enough of that. So, just to say that there are a lot of Iranians who are not Islamists who've had enough and want some freedom back. Now, remember, the internet's shut off in Iran. So, what we're getting out of Iran right now is nothing but propaganda. Very little is coming out unless somebody's managed to get a Starlink device going. 2CTV, if you watch him, he has a lot of that stuff. Dennis Rancourt. He has appeared at the National Citizens Inquiry. He has a scientific background. He is a scientist. Data crunching is his thing. Well-respected man. I do not agree with his politics, but it doesn't mean I can't respect who he is. He writes this from Brian Peckford, the only surviving member, by the way, of negotiating Canada's Constitution and Charter rights. Remember Brian Peckford, who was disallowed his own charter rights that he was a signatory on, being disallowed to travel from the coast to China on a ferry for not taking a COVID-19 vaccine, when we were all turned into second-class citizens, not allowed to get on a plane, a train, a ferry, leave the country. We were treated like second-class citizens, and Brian took this all the way to the Supreme Court as a signatory to the Constitution. And he was told no by the courts. No, you don't know what the hell you're talking about regarding the Constitution. And he was like, I was there. I was one of the writers. But no, they still ruled against him because the COVID tyranny is master of all, which is why we're all still worried about this final appeal regarding the Emergencies Act, because we have activist judges all the way up to the Supreme Court now that are in full support of liberal tyranny and authoritarianism. Here is what Brian Peckford wrote. My goodness, we've already been at this for an hour and I still haven't gotten to the McCain story. Carney and the Liberals flying high as they destroy our Constitution. Canadians seem unconcerned. As economic uncertainty blinded the nation, Bill C-9 is about to become law restricting speech in this country, violating the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Constitutional Foundation says, hatred and prejudice should of course be rejected. Bill C-9 goes much further than that. It opens the door to new legal penalties for ordinary speech, including a new standalone hate offense, the criminalization of certain symbols regardless of intent, and the removal of long-standing defenses for good faith religious expression. This means what qualifies as lawful expression in Canada will narrowly significantly if Bill C-9 gets passed. So this is past third reading in the lower house and has now gone to the Senate for its two readings and royal assent. So there is still time for it to be stopped at the Senate. The notwithstanding clause of the Charter is being undermined by the federal government, asking a court to limit the clause's powers, a change that can only be changed legally, constitutionally, through the amending formula of the Constitution 1982, Section 38, requiring the support of 7 provinces, their legislatures, and the federal government and its parliament. And of course, one of our massively failing ministers, who was responsible for bringing in uncontrolled mass immigration, who is responsible for now going to the courts, trying to do an end runaround on the Constitution by avoiding the requirement of 7 provinces to get their support, by getting the Superior Court to rule and say that, no, you know what? Notwithstanding clause should not be applied by provinces, and the federal government should have full, complete, and authoritarian power over all the provinces and not allow the provinces to rule for themselves over their own citizens, like they have since 1867. So that is what the Liberals are doing because they cannot get enough power. That's right, more power all the time. Well, they can tell you what to do from a centralized position, just like communists do. This changes the very core of federalism, and the Supreme Court of Canada said in 1981, rejecting Trudeau Sr.'s attempt to unilaterally change the Constitution that involved the powers of the provinces, that it was unconstitutional. This new effort would also involve the powers of the provinces and therefore is unconstitutional in trying to use the courts. There is a process, the amending formula. Elected people must decide. Elected people. But for some reason, the Liberals continually want to defer to the courts. They continually want to defer to the courts. In fact, the last day that the House was sitting, I was aghast when one of the Liberals actually said that they have nothing to do, parliamentarians have nothing to do with the law. I was like, here's a lawmaker saying such stupidity. Because they want to play this narrative that, oh no, it's up to the courts. Like just what happened in Brazil over the past 10 years, where slowly but surely the leftists got their own judge into that higher position where he's taking control of the country by passing laws from the bench. That's not the way it's supposed to work, folks. But it does when you're trying to take control of a country and get away with all the rights that people have held on to. All roads lead to moral decay. Dysfunction, when natural law is discarded and displaced and replaced by man's hubris and fallen ways. And what is he saying? This is what happens when you lose your anchor, as we have done by the governments and the courts trying to ignore the very framework words of the very first words of the Charter, the supremacy of God. And that just blows the far lefties crazy because they don't believe in God. They're atheists. They think morals and ethics are inconveniences to their moral superior, to their own moral superior, their own virtue signaling, their own profit margin. Oh, we can't get morals and ethics getting away with that, right? And that's why the Liberals have embraced communist China. Now, here we have DonaldBest.ca. Do not comply. Calling Dr. Pierre Polyev. You pushed the jabs and now you won't acknowledge the injuries and deaths. Someone else has been saying it online. I've been saying it all the time on this channel as well. You won't even say the name of Sean Hartman or meet his father. Oh, really? He won't meet Sean Hartman's father. No wonder. You know, I've been calling him to task for still saying silent, coming up on 2 months now, since Mark Carney sealed the COVID-19 vaccine harms and deaths and injuries for 15 years. Where are you, conservatives? You haven't said anything on that. You've said sweet F.A. nothing. Why is that? Why have you stayed silent? Here we have Molly Kingsley. 6 years later, the true scale of vaccine side effects is emerging. Front page of the Telegraph tonight. The UK key government ethics committee tried to raise a flag about the COVID-19 vaccine rollout on the basis the vaccine was invasive. Indeed. Why target him? Asked Silver Sentinel. Trudeau pushed, coerced the jabs, said we tolerated these people. What the fuck is wrong with you? She says, media message the same 24/7 under orders from the globalists, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure, whatever. But, of course, Polyev chided the government for not vaccinating more and faster, and he's got the receipts here. He's never once mentioned vaccine injuries and deaths. Not even once. That is true. Even though Health Canada has admitted thousands of them, actually 10,000. And we know it's a low number. It's actually substantially more injured and dead. But, you know, Pierre Polyev doesn't care about the people injured and killed by the vaccines he called for. Still waiting, conservatives. And I've tagged plenty of other conservatives on X as well, asking them, why are you and your leader still silent on this? You've got people that are suffering, misery, being offered aid, and you are still quiet. Wake up, conservatives. It's not a good look. Another one by Dennis Rancourt. He sent a letter to the senators in Canada regarding Bill C-9. Dear Honourable Canadian Senators from Ontario, I have been a researcher with the Ontario Civil Liberties Association since its founding. I have contributed to many reports about freedom of expression laws, codes, and statutes and their misapplication. Links to such the OCLA examples are given in below. So, the OCLA documented from 2014 has threats to civil liberties caused by the hate propaganda provisions of the Criminal Code of Canada affect all Canadians. The said sections define offences resulting in prison sentences of up to 5 years for speech that need not be proven to have caused physical or psychological harm to any person. The sections define crimes of expression in which the Crown is not required to prove there was a victim or that any person suffered actual harms. Yeah, this is basically, we deem it so, we don't need a victim, you're going to jail. The accused are typically politically isolated ordinary bloggers and publicists who express highly unpopular views that attract the political opportunism of influential lobby groups. Like me. The Ontario Civil Liberties Association knows of no scientific basis, sociological or physiological, whereas the emotion of hate can be caused casually or deterministically induced in a person by a communicator of words posted to a website. These conditions are greatly worsened in Bill C-9 of 2026, which I have read carefully. To name only two of many deleterious new features of the proposed criminal code additions, and he names them, the new Bill C-9 includes messages or symbols on visible handheld signs. Handheld signs! That's hate! Arrest that man! Where symbols are presumably to be criminal. Just presumption of criminality. Oh, we presume! Irrespective of any casual link to actual harm in any person. Listed entity. Membership of criminal symbols is determined by a political process controlled by the state. The state will decide. Basically, write your name in at the top and we'll decide what crime you're guilty of. The criminal code provisions would burn valuable public resources and create societal division in addition to generating unjust prosecutions. Well, look no further than what happened in the UK. All these police showing up at people's houses and then taking them away for hurdy words. That's what's coming to Canada, folks. The said provisions would be instruments of palpably egregious state interference in civil society. The nation would do better to trust public debate and express tensions other than oppress unwanted held views and sentiment. I urge you to reject Bill C-9 outright. Please feel free to contact me with any follow-up. Good example. And I recommend everybody here also contact your senators, because at this point, contacting the MPs has not stopped Bill C-9. When I was in the Canadian Armed Forces, I was very limited in my political aspirations as well, because you're limited as a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. Although that, of course, has changed with the fact that the Liberals have induced political officers throughout the Canadian Armed Forces to ensure that everybody thinks right now. Thinks, when I say right, I mean thinks in accordance with their diversity, equity, and inclusion type thinking, which is why you can't get any troops in the boots. Back then, I could write every single senator. So if you're in the armed forces, you can write every single senator, but you can only write your MP. From the Lesbian Gay Bi Alliance, Canada, Bill C-9 passes. As Bill C-9 passes, government continues to fund LGBTQ plus groups that view sex-based attraction as hate. Yeah. So if you're a normal heterosexual, right, and you're only attracted to women who are biological women, that's hate now, according to Bill C-9. You're a hateful person. You can go to jail for only being attracted to women as a man, because, you know, you're not attracted to transgender women. That's a hate crime now, according to Bill C-9, but, you know, hasn't reached royal assent. We're concerned that defunding women and homosexuals as sex-based class will now be criminalized as hatred. Well, congratulations, Liberals. You've lost the gays. Alberta 51 Project writes, so Trump to the rescue. Canada's Bill C-9 loses some of its fangs. Trump starts a free speech site for the world. So I'm not going to play this video because there's music in the background that'll just give me a YouTube strike. But basically what it is that the U.S. has set up a website that you can go to use as a bypass any blockages that your country is doing. So let's say someone in North Korea manages to get onto this website, they will be able to go to any other app, any other site that's being blocked by their country, such as in France, where they block Rumble. That's right. Rumble is blocked in France because Rumble refused to censor people that the French government wanted Rumble to censor that were opposing their political views. So Rumble is like, no, we are a free speech platform. We will not let you suppress our speech. So we will just not, we're not going to pay you. We're not going to do what you say, so you can block us. And they did. They blocked them. But now people in France will be able to use this portal to watch all the Rumble they want. Get a Rumble account? Please do it if you do. Hey, please give us a thumbs up, follow, and share, and all that stuff. But here in Canada, when you go to your Facebook page and it says, oh, sorry, you can't see that in Canada because you're in Canada and you're run by idiot Liberals, well, now you'll be able to go to this site and bypass. So as Bill C-9 comes in, as more restricted censorship comes in, if you find yourself being unable to access certain sites, Donald Trump to the rescue, folks, to do a workaround of Bill C-9. Outstanding. DonaldBest.ca, Kill to Order, now coming to Canada near you. You think it only happens in China? Read this book and then look at the path we are on. What he's talking about there is basically, again, let's go to the Uyghur camp, look at the bloodlines. It goes, oh, here's a genetic matchup. Go get me prisoner 82642. And out he comes, and off to the bed he goes, and they kill him, and they take his organs, and everybody's happy, except, of course, for the person who got their organs harvested. Well, the same thing is happening in Canada. Same day made being offered, and then they collect your organs, and nobody's the wiser. And as a matter of fact, it's even worse than that, because after you've been mated, apparently, oh, this isn't the one there. I have the story. we'll come across it later once I get to it, but basically in Canada now, if you have been mated, that will not appear on your death certificate, and neither will the drugs used to put you down. So there's law in Canada, especially here in Ontario, that details that the doctors are not allowed to put the cause of death on your death certificate if the government puts you down. Yeah, that's amazing. Actual historical revisionism, real time. It's like 1984, folks. Right here in Ontario. Mario Zelaya writes, people on Reddit are openly sharing how they got Canadian citizenship approved using screenshots from ancestry websites. Now, we have a chain migration bill that has just passed that has now opened up the floodgates to allow all these people into the country to become natural-born liberal voters to keep the liberals in power forever. Here he writes, no certified copies, no baptismal certificates, census documents found online and printed out. Fourth and fifth generation claims approved. Just like that. Hey, no interviews, no nothing. This is how fast they're letting people into the country, unvetted, no vetting whatsoever. This is chain migration. One approval becomes 10, 10 becomes 50. IRCC can't even investigate 153,000 non-compliant students that the Liberals just expect to leave. We expect them to leave. Yeah, right. They can only investigate 2,000 a year. 800 used fraudulent documents to stay. And of course, they've allowed them to stay. And nobody followed up. Nobody followed up. This is the disaster that the Liberals have unleashed upon Canada. And you bozos voted them right back in. Oh, yeah. And of course, the QCJO press. Are they ever going to touch these stories? No. They're just... You can see the pain in their face right now that they actually have to talk about the Michael Ma issue because they know that it makes their political masters look so bad. Here's Kanwar Siraj of RCIC writing, breaking Liberals come to the rescue of fraudulent asylum claimants impacted by Bill C-12, not even 24 hours after Bill C-12 became law, and the Liberal Party has already opened the floodgates with backdoor work permits pathways for fraudsters. Yeah, baby. Let those migrants into Canada. Canada's immigration system is compromised by corruption. Temporary public policy to facilitate access to open work permits for certain foreign nationals in Canada whose claims for refugee protection are ineligible to be referred to IRB. Full details here. Well, looky. Temporary public policy to facilitate access to open work permits for certain foreign nationals in Canada whose claims for refugee protection are ineligible to be referred to the IRB. Wow. And what's the date on this site? Look at that. Look at the publication date on this. 3 days ago. The Liberals are replacing you, Canadian citizens. When are you going to wake the hell up? When, if ever, are you going to wake up? Is it when you're just going in for toenail fungus and they offer to maid you? Is that when you're going to wake up? Because I don't know what it's going to take. Eric St. Pierre writes, my wife conducted a hiring fair for her work today. 43 out of the 75 applicants couldn't speak or understand English. What? Really? How do they think they're going to get a job? She said her dog Luna understands English better. Oh, why the hell is Immigration Canada letting in so many folks who can and will never integrate here? Why? It's obvious why. Because the Liberals have ordered them to do it. The Liberals have created this disaster. FBI Los Angeles writes, Nuramit Sidhu, 62 years old, of Brampton, Ontario, a Canadian national. Thank you for calling him a national. Pleaded guilty today to leading a criminal organization that during a roughly 1-month span trafficked from the United States into Canada hundreds of kilograms of methamphetamine and cocaine worth up to $17 million. Sidhu is the lead defendant in the 23-count January 2024 federal indictment targeting a drug trafficking organization. He has been in federal custody since 2024 after being extradited from Canada. Additional details, and they have a link. So as a reminder, this is what Canada's uncontrolled mass immigration has done. We are an international drug cartel and just full of criminals here in Canada. Right? We just let our doors wide open and let anyone move in and set up criminal business. And that's what that's what happens when you have a criminal cartel running the government. Ace of Spades writes, do you really think Carney will interfere Chinese drug cartels? What will Michael Ma have to say about that? Well, Chinese organized crime syndicates are directly linked to fentanyl-fueled money laundering operations in North America and have been for years. Former American investigator David Asher had his say about the problem in the past. In almost all of the investigations as far as money laundering is concerned, we'd seize their phones and immediately we'd see Canada light up like a Christmas tree. Ah, Canada, you say. Only Canada, you say. Asher alleges transnational criminal groups co-opted by the Chinese Communist Party are directing major money laundering operations right across North America with a command center based in Canada. The investigator says Chinese triad organizations like the 14K and Sun Yi On are using Chinese international students as money mules to deposit fentanyl-related cash from Mexican cartels into top U.S. and Canadian banks, including the Toronto Dominion Bank. Now, if you don't recall this, the TD has been fined billions. Was it $1.3 billion fine? Something like that? For money laundering by the United States Department of Justice. And that's your bank there, Canada. Yeah, baby. Asher criticized the Canadian government for lack of cooperation and deliberately hampering efforts to disrupt the sophisticated networks fueling the devastating opioid crisis, something that was brought up by Donald Trump right off the bat when he got back in office a year ago, calling Canada out, saying, get control of these criminal cartels along your border. And the far lefties and the El Bozos said, he's lying, he's Trump, he's MAGA, he's this, he's that. That's not true. But our own journalist, Sam Cooper, has been exposing this for a long time and has recently written a book on it. So it's not like we didn't know that this was happening. And it's just the fact that, well, the Liberals control what the RCMP investigates. And that's why you don't know about it there, Canada. And maybe that's why 3,400 officers are missing from the ranks of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police because they know that the entire system is so corrupted by the Liberals that there's no sense in joining a police organization that is just helping out a criminal organization calling itself the government. The investigator says Chinese triad organization like the 14K, so we read that. After Asher criticized the Canadian government for lack of cooperation. Sorry, we read that. Now, he suggests the problem extends beyond the TD Bank, accusing many of the largest U.S. financial institutions of allowing these illicit funds flow to continue. So, Asher also claims the Chinese state is subsidizing methamphetamine and fentanyl exports, weaponizing these transnational mafias against North American citizens. Well, we sure have seen a lot of crime in Canada. People's homes being shot up. We've seen people being threatened if you don't pay us the money. So you got extortion problems. You know, extortion, of course, is going to come along once your criminal organizations are established in that area. They move on to extortion because they've gone, from sex and prostitution and human trafficking. So why not extortion? And all of it is happening. Why do you think so many women are disappearing in Canada? Constantly, young girls, especially here in our area, right along the 401 corridor, just a couple of blocks away, well, a couple of dozen blocks away, not a dozen blocks away. And all along here, the 401 corridor, women go missing all the time. Canada is not a safe place because of the Liberals. White Rabbit Warrior. In the early 2000s, I was flying home to Canada after being overseas for 2 years, flying through Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands. I don't know if I pronounced that right. When I got to the gate, I was clear to see it was Canada, from flags to Roots-branded clothing, clearly pale skin tones from a long, cold winter, and the sounds of English and French conversation wafting through the air. A week ago, I flew through the same airport on my way back, and when I arrived at my gate, it wasn't as clear this time from the passengers. This time, I was headed to Toronto or Mumbai from the look of it, though it was likely Toronto, as 90% of the people boarding had at least 3 generations of their family with them, spoke no English or French, many so old they needed wheelchair assistance, and looked eager to take advantage of whatever systems we still have left in Canada. Chain migration right there, folks. A witness report, basically, right there of chain migration happening real time, just in time for the next election to ensure that the Liberals are the natural ruling party forever as they import as many new Liberal voters as they can because of the laws they have passed. Because you bozos, you voted them in to replace you. Now, don't say I didn't warn you when they show up at your house and offer you to either go to jail for offending somebody's feelings or taking the maid way out so you don't have to suffer being in jail for offending somebody. Now, here's Natasha Montreal writing, Montreal, that's right. Arabic man berates female police officer. You dirty W word, shut your mouth, you be. I want you and you'll become my slave. It's my fault. I am richer than you. He accuses her of racial profiling because, of course, he does. Right now, you can watch this. She's just going on nonstop in French, berating her, and what she's doing there. She's doing that little check on his tinting bylaw. You know, you're only supposed to have tinted a certain amount, and of course, that's for safety, right? Especially for cops, they need to be able to see what's going on in the car if they pull you over. But anyway, it's a law, pay the fine. And she checks his window and she says, yeah, you're paying a fine. And he doesn't like it, does not like it at all. But, this is the kind of disrespect that not only do they have for the law, but that they also have for society. Because when you have this kind of disrespect here, imagine what kind of disrespect they have everywhere else, especially the way he's talking to this officer. Now, they get pulled over by the cops. They're doing their job. And if you want an easy time, be polite. If you don't want an easy time, be impolite. But you see here, if I was her, I would have been a little more effective. But, that's what happens. We warned it years ago. If you allow women to get into trades that are dominated by men that require physical strength, they're not going to be as capable. Ron Butler writes, average age of first-time home buyers in Canada is 40. What the freak have we done to ourselves? That's right. In the 1990s, the average age was 27. If you go back in time, it's even slightly lower. If you take housing prices from 2.5 times average family income to 9 times or 10 times, this is the result. This is true. And even if there are people in their 40s buying houses right now, and that's the average age. Is it their first house? Do they really have to wait this long? I mean, again, another example of how far Canada has fallen under the Liberals. John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. writes, the video got to President Trump. He just reposted it at the beginning of Bye Bye Fake News. What is she talking about? Well, let's listen. Now, if you were here so far, you will remember that in Canada in 2019, right, Trudeau passed a law saying The press can lie to you, and fines that were required are no longer there. Something similar happened in the United States. So she brought this up, saying that could you maybe bring that legislation back in that says that if you lie, you're going to get fined? And I guess the video got to the president, and then he reposted it. So I guess executive order, or maybe asking Congress to make some laws to pass it through, but who knows? Time for the fake news is finally going to stop in the United States. Now, if only we could get the same legislation here in Canada back to force media, especially the media that our tax dollars are paying for right now, to tell us the truth by law. By law. I am the law. Dr. Heidi Klessig writes, 69-year-old grandmother Miriam Hayos Baldrich was struck by a subway train in Manhattan in 2022, sustaining a severe head injury. Even though she had clues to her identity in her pocket, and her family had filed a missing vulnerable adult report, the hospital treated her as a Jane Doe and harvested her organs. Yeah, baby. A U.S. Uniform Anatomical Gift Act states that if you are incapacitated and your family is not reasonably available and there is no documented evidence of your choice not to donate, the administrator of the hospital shall donate your body, organs, and tissues on your behalf. So, doctors at the NYU Langone Medical Center removed Hoyos de Baldrich's organs without her family's knowledge or consent. Her family and friends said she never registered organ donor and opposed the practice on religious grounds. The family has filed a lawsuit pointing out that vulnerable people are being victimized and that the interests of organ procurement organizations and hospitals should not supersede the rights of patients and families. So, being in New York City, you can easily leave your ID at home. You go for a quick run, or you go to the store, and God forbid something happens, an accident happens, and then you're taken to the hospital. Do you now become hospital property just because they couldn't identify you? This is where the world is going under far left ideology. No respect for human life. All you are is a carbon credit or an organ donating factory. To liberals, to the far left, to the elites, anyone who has no respect for human life. Delta Hospice Society writes, this is exactly what happens to us. Though we are not faith-based, we refuse to kill our patients, so they took our funding, our assets, the $8.5 million, evicted us from the buildings we built, and reopened the hospice under the Public Health Authority so they could provide MAID there. It will happen to you in the UK too, we confidently promise. Here's Lord McCree. We cannot ignore the fact that many care homes and hospices' provision of assisted suicide on their premises is a red line that they will not cross. Imagine that. You actually have a hospice set up to take care of people who want to live until they're naturally taken away. And then the hospital says, no, we need a processing center to MAID people and collect their organs. That's what the hospitals are doing. These are the types of conversations, and this is how you need to place it to people who say, oh, but MAID is wonderful. MAID is necessary. What if somebody doesn't want to suffer? And then you tell them the truth. You tell them the truth on how this has become industrialized and that it is now the fourth leading cause of death in Canada. Ryan Garrettson writes, the food bank in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan has seen a 150% increase in people needing to use their food bank. 50 new families per month are signing up. How can this be? For 11 years, the Liberals have told us they've been making life more affordable for Canadians. Moose Jaw, or as we made fun of it when I was in the armed forces because it was one of our postings. In French, it's Mâchoire d'Orignal, but it's not called that. It's called Moose Jaw. It's a training facility for our pilots. It's where our pilots go to train on basic helicopter flight, and they get trained on basic flight as well as basic jet flying. They have the jet trainers there as well. And then from there, the pilots will move on to their squadrons. Well, They've already been assigned to the squadrons, but they got to go there for their training. So you have an armed forces base there pumping money into the society. Now, mind you, the maintenance on that base is no longer done by Canadian Armed Forces personnel. Right? That's all been contracted out to private industry. The armed forces used to do maintenance on the Tudors that were used. You still see the snowbirds flying those, but the new jets that they use as trainers, no. Now the progressive conservatives started that insanity of having private industry maintain a Royal Canadian Air Force airframes back in the 1990s. Yes, progressives. Again, progressives are not conservatives. It's an oxymoron. Now, here's Dane Lloyd on McCain's Law. Let us listen to what he is saying.
I have fantastic news to share. My bill, McCann's Law, has passed second reading at the House of Commons. This is a significant hurdle that most private members' bills never pass. This means that this critical legislation will now be going to the Public Safety Committee, where we're going to study it further, hopefully get it passed so that we can get this legislation enacted to support victims and their families. For those of you who haven't been following, McCann's Law is legislation named in honor of Lyle and Marie McCann. They're an elderly couple from St. Albert, Alberta, that were murdered back in 2010.
A St. Albert couple has been missing now for more than 4 months. In part one of a special report, David Owasik looks into what was seen at Minnow Lake in the hours before the McCann's motorhome went up in flames.
Their remains have never been found, but their killer was convicted and is currently serving time behind bars. This killer is actually eligible for parole today and is not required to provide any information about the location of his victim's remains in order to receive parole. I think it's completely unjust that families have to live without the closure of a proper funeral for their loved ones, while killers could be let out by parole boards to walk the streets as free people. Passing this legislation is essential for supporting victims and their families by giving them the justice that they desperately deserve and need. This is such important legislation, and there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be passed. I'm really looking forward to the committee process, and I call on all parliamentarians to support this bill so that we can bring justice to victims and their families.
That's a good bill. That's a really good bill. I hope it passes. But because it makes sense, because it's common sense, the Liberals will probably vote against it, because that's what they do. Now, if you didn't know this, of course, remember, 1st of April, start of the fiscal year for the governments, but also the annual pay raise for the government that they brought into law to give themselves an annual pay raise, regardless of whether or not they've done a good job, regardless of whether or not they actually deserve it, regardless of or not of whether the society can support it economically. They're still getting it. Everybody here. And you had one Conservative MP who said, I'm not taking it, not with today. And he had other Conservative MPs chastise him. So, Conservatives, right now, the federal Conservatives are still full of people who are basically red Tories. People probably harken back to the old days of the progressive Conservatives who still would like to have those old days of, insider corruption and theft and unaccountability, all those same things that happened on the Mulrooney progressive Conservatives, right? They're hoping to get back to once they can crush the Liberals. We see you, especially see you in what you're not saying about the COVID-19 vaccine injuries. Canadian Grey Man writes, I'm done. And he's not the only one who's done. There's posts like this happening almost every day now on X on how much these people are effing done. And I was done back when I was being coerced into taking a COVID-19 vaccine after we knew that it was fraudulent and injurious and deadly, and they still wanted us to take it or else not be part of society. I was fucking done then. This guy's done now. I'm done. 50 effing years of sweat, 2 trades, government services and volunteering, diploma engineering, cybersecurity, cloud architecture, forensic data, and AI. Busted my ass for years, raised good kids, paid every damn tax, obeyed every law, voted like they told me to, and for what? A system that laughs in our face. Politicians who lie straight to our faces. Promises of better days that we're just bait, while they cash checks and we get the bill. The mollycoddled their chosen voter base with exorbitant government grants, asylum money, and assistance, regardless of how vile their statements against Canadians and their celebrating of the most evil regime since Hitler. And he's talking about China, folks. They rape and pillage our country with this piece of shit, takes guns from our Canadian farmers. We built this country. We carried it on our backs. We're the suckers who still believe in hard work pays off. Newsflash, it doesn't. Not anymore. Not for honest, humble, middle-class, hard-working Canadians. We are not slaves anymore. It doesn't work. We're awake. We're pissed. And we're not shutting up. Who else is done with being exploited? Eh? The government is taxing you to death and then offering you death. Literally offering you death. Now, Nicholas Hulcher, MPH, our landmark autopsy study, which found that 73.9% of deaths following COVID-19 vaccination were caused by the shots, was illegally retracted just after becoming the #1 most read scientific paper in the world. It's time to invoke the RICO Act against journal cartel, the medical journal cartel. We established a causal link between COVID shots and deaths, warranting an immediate FDA Class 1 recall. Most died within a week of vaccination, primarily from heart damage, brain clots, and multi-organ failure. Now remember, Carney has hidden COVID-19 vaccine harms and deaths records for 15 years so they can hide their crimes against humanity. I'm expecting a knock on my door if Bill C9 passes. Canada reported, according to lifenews.com, euthanized a blind man yesterday. Canada reportedly euthanized a blind man yesterday. Fucking Canada. John Maloney was his name. He was terminally ill. He wasn't in significant pain. John was killed just because he's blind. Are you right? We have to stop this tyrannical euthanasia regime that pushes death instead of medical care and support. Why, if he wanted to live, and even if he didn't want to live, why aren't people saying, well, we can take care of you. We can take care of you and let you live as long as you want. As long as God wants you to live. No, liberals. For liberals, it's death. Oh, you're too much of a burden, and you're blind, you know? You don't want to live blind, do you? You don't have a really good life like that. Let's off you. This is the level of lack of respect for human life amongst liberals. In Canada, 1 in every 20 deaths that occurs is government killing a citizen. It's higher than that, because he's not including all the people who waited and died waiting for health care, 100,000, because of uncontrolled mass immigration. He didn't count the over 50,000 Canadians who've died from overdoses because of the Liberal harm reduction program, ensuring that people can continue to harm themselves with drugs. He didn't count the other 100,000. Well, sorry, that is the other 100,000 there is the maid. More from Donald Best. Ontario doctors are under orders to lie on your death certificate. And this was what I was saying there earlier. There's a link to the CPSO, medical certificates of death in the MAID context. The illness, disease, disability leading to the request of MAID is to be recorded as a cause of death. The certificate cannot include any reference to MAID or medications administered. So the government wants to kill you, harvest your organs, and then they don't want anyone to know about it. You want to tell me how that's okay? How that's okay today in Canada? David Menzies reminds us. Now, of course, David is such a shit disturber, but he's a good one. And he's had his issues with Lotto, with the lottery people, because he's won a few Lotto tickets. He's won a couple of sums, and he's gone to collect it, and they've said, "No, we don't believe you. You got this ticket," and he's had to take them to court. Yeah. So, of course, he's got it in for them, and now, of course, he's up on what they're doing, and now he's discovered something. Now, because as of next month, the game will cost you more to play, so it's going up $1, and the odds of winning the jackpot will get horribly worse. 2 additional numbers are being added. So you had like a 1 in 99 million chance of winning, and now it'll be 1 in 124 million chance of winning. So or 140 million chance. Anyway, the odds have gone up significantly. I think like about 50%. So you're going to pay more. You're going to have less of a chance to win. And has lottery people said anything about this? Nope. That's why David Menzies is on the story. Ezra Levant, breakthrough. The U.S. is open to building an oil pipeline from the Alberta-U.S. border to the west coast through U.S. territory, detouring around the intransigent BC politicians and litigious Indian bands. Oh, my goodness me. If you've seen what's going on in BC right now, the place is just falling apart. I guess now the natives are wanting to confiscate land around lakes as well. Yeah, and BC is bankrupt. It's absolutely bankrupt. They were given a balanced budget before the NDP took over, and now the NDP has been spending money like drunken sailors on meth. Again, always apologies to drunken sailors. And now they've lost and chased away so much business out of the province that, well, they're just not fiscally viable anymore. And of course, people are fleeing BC because they know that, well, their property isn't safe anymore. There's no reason to live in BC because you can't have simple fee protection for your property. Your taxes are probably going out bananas. And, well, the government is for leftoids who basically don't have a responsible bone in their body. So why would you want to go and live on the far left coast? Well, the few people that are still living there are still trying to save it as best they can. But guess what? Now you're not getting your oil pipeline through, which means all that revenue, all that construction that was going to happen going through your province, bonzo. And that's what happens when you F around. Now, if you have been following the NDP Socialist Conference, they're picking a leader today, and it's every bit as crazy as you thought it was going to be. So let's just watch a couple of videos from the NDP, and then we will call it a day. Thank you all for hanging out. Today, it's been probably one of the longer second breakfast shows. We had a lot to cover today. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, again at 9 for second breakfast. And if I can just get off my butt and get a couple more extra videos out, we still have some footage from last week in the lower house, but we have 2 weeks to put it out, so maybe that's why I'm taking my time. So let's listen to these 2 videos, and then we'll call it a day.
Microphone 2, are you on this resolution?
Yes.
Microphone 2, please.
My name is Mastura Tasneem. My pronouns are she, they. I'm from Ontario. Hello, bonjour. As we conduct this convention today and the past 2 days, right now there's discussions of 10,000 American men and women being sent to Iran, being deployed, just to be part of this bloodbath. Canada cannot and will not be part of the legacy of blood that was built in Iraq, in Palestine, and now in Iran. This is a no-question debate. I call this question, Madam and Chairs. Thank you.
Your point's quite well made, Speaker. I'll again thank delegates not to call me Madam Chair or Madame la Présidente. I'm a non-binary person. My pronouns are they, them, and their. Chair is sufficient. And with regret, you've spoken to the resolution. It's not open to you to also call the question. If the question is the will of the House, someone else must call it because we heard from you in substantive debate.
Okay, I was not aware.
Weird rule. Microphone 4.
Burnaby North Seymour, pronouns he, him. Point of information.
What information do you seek, Delegate?
Can I ask an election about Or can I ask a question about executive elections to the chair?
As I understand it, what more election results we have are going to be announced at the end of the day.
I have a point of information for the elections committee.
The elections committee has gone to do balloting and they're not available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Microphone 4, are you on a point?
Point of order, Robert Alley, he, they. My understanding as an equity-seeking delegate is that these cards are to help the chair hear equity-seeking persons and that we don't only hear from white male delegates. Now, this is my first convention, so I could be wrong, but the reason for my concern is that yesterday during the housing resolution, after a white man spoke, someone at this mic waved their equity card only to give their speaking spot to a white man. Now that white man being a leadership delegate notwithstanding, I had lined up for a long time to discuss the housing resolution, like many others, including my fellow delegate, Akua. I just want us as a body to understand the spirit of these cards, because we are a party governed by processes and not by any sort of shock doctrine. Like I said before, it's my first convention, but I can tell tensions are high with the leadership contest, and I just want us to make sure that we remember our values that brought us here. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.